And we're here to talk about the change in global climate change and global warming and how it can affect us. And before we get to our main point of what we think we can do to help prevent it, we're going to give a little background information with an introduction.
You've heard the terms global warming and climate change, and you likely know that they refer to the same phenomenon. So why are these two terms used to describe the same concept?
Global warming refers to the increase in average global temperature. Since the 1850s, our planet has experienced approximately 0.8 degrees Celsius of warming. Our planet experiences increases in average temperature when extra solar radiation becomes trapped in our atmosphere. This extra energy begins to disrupt long-established climate patterns, resulting in stronger winds, increased evaporation, and shifting of ocean currents. These abnormalities can affect regional weather patterns in a variety of ways, and these effects are collectively known as climate change.
The terms climate change and global warming have been used in the scientific sense since the 1970s. However, global warming, being the cause of climate change, was substantially more common in the public forum. Suddenly, however, in 2003, a conservative political consultant named Frank Luntz facilitated a switch. In a secret memo, Luntz wrote,
"It's time for us to start talking about climate change instead of global warming, and conservation instead of preservation. Climate change is less frightening than global warming. As one focus group participant noted, climate change sounds like you're going from Pittsburgh to Fort Lauderdale, while global warming has catastrophic connotations attached to it. Climate change suggests a more controllable and less emotional challenge."
The transition from using global warming to climate change was not due to changing scientific definitions or theories, but was instead a rhetorical ploy used to influence the public into perceiving the environmental crisis as less urgent or dangerous than it really is. Running away from the problem is not going to make it go away. We need to address global warming and climate change, or whatever else you want to call it, before it is too late.
Okay, so we took the stance of prevention for global warming and why it has become so bad for our future. Global warming hasn't become uniform until almost recent years. Over a million years, our sun's average energy output was 25 to 30% less than it was a million years ago. The global warming is more abundant in the north and south poles over the winter months. Normally the north and south poles, they're water, they freeze. And instead, now they're just forming a thin layer of ice. This means that animals that rely on here, such as penguins and polar bears, they now might have to find somewhere to go and live and navigate so they can function. But the question is, where to? The overall temperature of the Earth has increased over the past couple years, and places such as Ohio, which we live in, have been experiencing extremely hot summers, versus back 20, 30 years ago, the summers they were pretty average and temperatures didn't reach close to 100.
With all the dramatic changes coming with global warming and global climate change, it is abundant and maybe a severe effect on our future. Like we stated before, marine life would suffer. The melting of the poles becomes a problem when it causes the ocean waters to be more acidified, and it makes it dangerous for people who like to even go to the beach and stuff. And not only that, but in the colder areas, like we said, with the Arctic and the poles, with the polar bears and all that stuff, you see all the cute little commercials about saving the wildlife. Also, children these days are at a higher risk of disease and they're more vulnerable. With the climate change and all the global warming, there's a good chance of heat strokes and heat waves coming in certain areas that are at higher temperatures, such as like the deserts in Arizona and all that. So children are at a higher risk, as well as the elderly, for heat strokes due to high temperatures, and they can't really come back from that as they would be able to in previous years. Hunger would also increase because of the price of food would go up. The damage of the climate and the damage in the environment would cause certain crops to not be able to form as abundantly and as efficiently as they would have before. Hunger is predicted to, people who suffer from hunger is expected to increase to anywhere from 10 to 20% within the next 40 years. Also, an assessment made by the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change is made an assessment that the global temperature will increase anywhere from 1 to 2 degrees Celsius in the next couple decades, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but that's almost equivalent to 36 degrees. Also, gas prices will continue to rise due to the environment suffering and all the other ways that we have to try and prevent it. We won't have the same necessities as we would in the past, and especially in today's economy, gas prices rising is something that we do not want to have. Ways that we can help prevent global warming. It's not going to be something that can be done overnight. It's not easy, and it's not going to be done just by one person. So coming together as a whole, which might be kind of hard with 7 billion people on the planet working together to try and find a common way to prevent global warming, we can do the little things in life that can help us prevent things, like using low emission technologies, using less fuel, less energy. Reducing levels of greenhouse gases is going to be the #1 thing. As our textbook stated, carbon dioxide resides at the center of the discussion for global warming and global climate change, but they don't exactly know why yet. It's the most abundant greenhouse gas, and it causes a good deal of problems for us in the environment. So even the little things in life, like simply carpooling from place to place, or riding your bike one day, not taking the bus, and in the whole reduce, reuse, recycle, keeping our environment safe, as well as, like we said, less energy and less fuel. But also, it's not simple, it's not easy, it's something that's going to take a little time, but we're working on it.
Cons of prevention of global warming is that developing nations such as Malaysia and Mexico, they may not be able to afford it versus the United States, where we do have a stronger economy than them. Another issue is that we all won't agree on the same idea. We've seen this happen in the past, where countries, they would say, yeah, I'm going to do this, and then at the last minute they back out, such as we did it before, back in a few years ago. Another problem is greenhouse gases. They're still going to be there, as she said in the previous slide. It's not like we can just wake up tomorrow morning and say, oh, global warming, it's done and over, and it's a thing of the past. The problem is we're still going to use cars, we're still going to have coal plants, we're still going to have glass houses, and not only that, we're still going to have agriculture, which contributes to the United States economy. And this is why the greenhouse gases, they also will still be abundant.
So just to wrap it up in conclusion, like we said, it's a common misconception that global warming and global climate change are used for the same deal when they're not exactly necessarily the same thing. They do, however, are dependent on one another. As we discussed that we took a stance on, it's very important to prevent it, but we also think it's very important that you need to continue to study it, and you need to learn how to prepare for it in order to know how to help prevent it. And global warming, we have figured out that it's not gradual, although it is uniform in some locations. It is not benign as well, and neither is global climate change, and it should not be taken lightly either subject.
Any questions?